Hello, and welcome to the Warrant Committee meeting of June 15th, 2026, in what I certainly assume is the final meeting of this fiscal year and this Warrant Committee's year. Never say never, but I'm pretty sure it's the final meeting. Karen, can you call us to order by calling roll?
Jay Fundling, Lauren D. I hear an echo, so. Grace Doherty's on Zoom. Larry Johnson. Julia Maxwell is on Zoom. Brian McGuire. Ronald Sia is on Zoom. And Nicholas Tapp is in the room. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Can you try promoting Ron again? I hit him with a stick, and he knows what to do now. So the first thing on our agenda is to approve minutes. Karen, I didn't give you a heads up, but can I ask you we got several emails worth of minutes over the past week?
23.
Less than a week? First of all, I'll look around the room and virtually. Are people okay with voting on minutes that we got? Okay. Karen, can you inform us what minutes we have to vote on?
From 2025, you have September 24th, September 29th, October 24th, November 3rd, December 8th, and December 15th. From 2026, you have January 20th, January 29th, February 2nd, February 26th, March 2nd, 9, 11, and 17. And you have May 6th, May 7th, and May 11.
Okay, we have heard that list. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve all the minutes that were just mentioned.
I'll second it.
Okay, Nick made the motion and Lorraine seconded. Any discussion? Karen, can you do a roll call vote?
Sorry, Lorraine,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
and Jay.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Karen, I want to thank you, and Macy, if you're listening, I want to thank you too. At the beginning of this term, we were years behind in our minutes. And when I asked Macy to be secretary, the one thing I asked her to do is get those minutes under control. And I have not had to do any work for the minutes, and I thank you and Macy for that, Karen. And you did it. Are we all caught up? I shouldn't focus on the negative. Let's pretend we're all caught
I
up.
owe you a few sets.
Okay.
You're about 3 behind, and then adding today. So
We're
yes, I do owe
practically-
you some. They're all short meetings.
We're practically all caught up. Thank you so much for that, and thank you, Macy. The next item of real business for tonight, and I'd like to ask Town Administrator Nick Milano to join us at the table. So he's going to describe a bit of what this next item of business is about. I mean, I'll say it's about, at the end of the year, there are fund transfers from one account to another. In theory, some of them will require a warrant committee vote. In actuality, what happens each year is the warrant committee appoints someone to be their sole designee to go through that tedium. Nick, can you say more about the process? Yeah, that's an open-ended question.
So there will be 3 kind of groups of requests that we'll bring for approval. The first is reserve fund transfers. The reserve fund that is appropriated each year as part of the operating budget is under the approval authority of the warrant committee. So we'll use the reserve fund to transfer money out and into departmental budgets that have overspent, whether on expenses or on salaries, or in the case of health insurance, if the health insurance budget comes in over budget. So the first source of funding that we turn to is typically the reserve fund. So those require approval from the warrant committee or the warrant committee to vote to designate a committee or an individual to approve those. The second set is appropriations transfers. So those are, if you look in the warrant, every line that's in the warrant is a set budget. So we can't move money from police salaries to police expenses without approval of the warrant committee and the select board. So that requires approval from both boards. So we'll also generally have sometimes transfers that require movement between departmental lines, so in that example, from police salaries to police expenses or vice versa. Or alternatively, from one department to another department, so from police to DPW, DPW to police, those kinds of transfers would require approval, as I mentioned, by the warrant committee and the select board. And the third batch of, this is more seldom, is an authority to overspend a revolving fund limit. So if you'll remember, there's an article in the warrant that sets limits on how much each revolving fund can spend from. And we can overspend that limit with the approval, again, of the select board and the warrant committee. It's assuming there's enough money in the fund. There's an annual spending limit that is below the amount of money that's in the fund that requires approval to spend over. So those are the three kind of general transactions. I think this year we've talked a bit about snow and ice, so we will have transfers related to the snow and ice budget that is in deficit of about $1.5 million at this point. So we're already identifying departmental budgets and other budgets that we expect to have underspent funds, and we'll have a number of transfers to alleviate that deficit as much as possible. So in the last couple of years, it's been more nothing on that scale. So this has been a worse year in general of snow and ice. I'll just note as a side point that we don't have to close that snow and ice budget. We actually have 3 years to resolve that deficit now. The state law has changed around that. So we want to address it now, but we have options to extend that if necessary. So those are the three types of transfers. Health insurance is one we always keep an eye on, just because people can come and go off the plan, people can go from individual to family plans. Our costs can kind of change on a given year. And then snow and ice is the other big one, and then there may be things in departments that just incur a little bit above spending that is typical, but that's the general lay of the land.
Okay, and I know we're 2 weeks from the end of the fiscal year, and I think you told me you don't have total numbers together, but do you have, okay, we know snow and ice went over budget. Do you know what else we know that we can, should, will move?
In terms of going over budget, no, I think we feel okay on the other departmental budgets. In terms of any kind of deficit that would be significant, I don't see that. Health insurance, like I say, it is one that we have to monitor closely, and we pay for all the teachers' payroll for the summer. They choose to take that money in one lump sum, gets paid out on last week's payroll. So once that payroll settles, we're able to kind of fine tune departmental budgets, particularly related to health insurance, as that's just a little bit of a tricky one to map out. We expect to have savings in the select board budget. We had a vacancy in the assistant town administrator position, the director of planning position, the assistant director position for much of the fiscal year, so there's decent savings in this budget that we will likely transfer to snow and ice. We had a tweak to debt service, so we expect savings in the debt service line, again, likely to be transfers to snow and ice. And then the other departmental budgets that have been on track or under budget, so we think there is savings in several other departmental budgets that we should be able to move to snow and ice to take a big hit at that deficit.
Can I ask about the teachers? So
Yes.
most of the summer is in the next fiscal year. So if they get their paycheck today,
It's budgeted accordingly. It's their pay for this entire year over, they can take it just the months that they work,
okay,
or they can spread it out over 26 pays or 20 pays. So there's a big lump sum that happens right now. So it's the same amount, it's just a timing question of when it's actually paid out.
I can't say I totally follow how we keep the fiscal years
That's a
same.
finance director question that I can't address
Okay.
fully either, but I can just
Okay.
tell you that's what happens.
Make a liability for it though, right?
I'm sorry?
You make a liability for it, I would suspect, at the end of the year.
You're
They could
in the
guarantee.
accounting world that I'm not in anymore.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it should work. Like you expense it technically in this year, I would think. The school would, I would think it would.
I don't
'Cause they
wanna,
owe
I
it.
don't wanna misspeak
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
That's okay.
or
If you don't know,
speak
don't say
wrongly about it, so.
That's how I would think you'd do it, I don't know.
It's what they're owed for this school year of income,
Mm-hmm.
can be taken over the course of the entire year or over some other kind of payments, but it's the same amount paid for the course of the school year. It's just a question of when they receive it or not.
It's
Yeah.
pretty common.
But it's all one fiscal year.
So regarding snow and ice, I know you don't know what you don't know. I didn't hear you say, yes, we'll have enough to cover the snow and ice budget, or no, we definitely won't. You didn't say either one of those, so.
Yeah, I want to wait for a little more certainty as we move through the next couple of vendor warrants and the final payroll warrant. Cause
Okay.
it's gonna be about pulling from those departmental budgets where possible.
Mhm.
The state legislature, and I don't know if the governor signed it yet, but they approved a supplemental budget in the last couple of weeks, maybe a week ago, that provides $80 million to cities and towns for snow and ice, shared on the road mileage calculation that they use for the chapter 90 money that goes to city and towns for roads. So that is about $250,000 that the state is providing towards snow and ice expenses for fiscal 26. In addition to that, there's another $20 million that is set aside for cities and towns that were particularly hard hit, that we expect most of that to flow to the Cape and South Coast that had extended outages and extended delays in getting back to open, but maybe that means there's a little bit more for Milton, that's kind of TBD, so that's one factor that we need to see what that money comes down into. We did have the state did submit for a disaster declaration from FEMA, so there's a question of, is there another couple $100,000 that might come to Milton through a federal disaster declaration that we applied for? And then the various transfers that we mentioned. So there's a few different strategies we can follow, and closing the deficit in its entirety may not be necessary, depending on what's going on with the state, what's going on with FEMA, so that's part of the calculation as well. So I'm hopeful, but I don't wanna say we'll close all that deficit, no problem. There's a couple of different factors that we have to kind of keep in mind.
And when will all this be settled?
I'd say, with certainty, the last date for approval of any of these would be July 15th. So, we process payments in the prior fiscal year up and until, the week prior to that. So, I would say we would be done with this work by July 14th. But we should know to a much greater degree, by the first week of July.
Okay. So in the past, the warrant committee has voted to nominate the chair or the secretary if needed to sign things on their behalf, approve transfers on their behalf. I plan to be in the area the first 2 weeks of July, so I'm not trying to grab power here, but I'm willing, if the committee wants to make me their designee to approve these transfers,
Sure.
I'm willing and able.
I nominate
Thank you.
Brady.
Here, read 2B.
Just one more question though, like, where is it recorded, like when you make these decisions, when you vote to approve the transfers, like, how does the public get access to it?
So it's reported in the next year's annual town warrant. It's one of the tables in there is the prior year reserve fund transfers. We've
Excellent.
always, in prior years, we've invited members of the committee to join when we've had a conversation about them to give the overview. And we usually produce an electronic report that can be shared. And the appropriations transfers and the change with the revolving fund also needs the select board approval, so that would be also discussed and voted on at the select board meeting.
Okay.
So there's a couple different pathways there.
I'm just curious.
Can I ask, how much is in the reserve right now?
I don't have the appropriation on the top of my head. It was either $286 or $300,000 in that range in fiscal 26.
Yeah, and I don't think we used any.
282. We have not yet. It's in that range. Sorry.
And like for the snow and ice, that would go first, yes, that would, I presume. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I think
Even
we're,
at the department expenses.
it might just because sometimes it's easier to have a reserve fund transfer go into a department and then do transfers from other departments right into it's really just a kind of a transparency thing, what makes the most sense to be the most easily understood how we resolve these issues.
Should I make a motion then? We good?
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, I found it.
I gave you the wording of the motion,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. I move to authorize J funding to approve reserve fund transfers, appropriation transfers, and revolving fund expenditure limit increases on behalf of the warrant committee.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Karen, can you do a roll call vote?
Maureen,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes,
Julia,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
and Jay.
Abstain?
The motion carries.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is upcoming issues for the fall. Now, our committee turns over July 1st, but to the extent that we can see what's coming in the fall, I'd like to hear it. I think the agenda said, number one, library college, and number two, all other fall meeting articles. So, I mean, I think some of you know, there's a question of the library college possible purchase. I asked Mr. Milano to speak to it, not so much what classes would we put there? Should we put kindergarten there? Should we put 8th grade there? Does it have enough rooms? Not so much that, we can, I encourage you to watch school committee meetings and school building committee meetings that address that issue. What I wanted the warrant committee to know about is the money stuff. I mean, Mr. Milano can't say anything secret about how much we might or might not pay for it. Aside from that, sort of the nuts and bolts of what gets approved when and how we make decisions, things like that. So, Mr. Milano?
Sure, so, I'll just give a kind of a recap on what's been publicly discussed and address that question. So the school committee has voted to, approve a potential program of district administration pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, if the town were to acquire a library college. It's located on Adams Street, it's 303 Adams Street, it's about 4.7 acres, and there's maybe 50,000 square feet of space in what are kind of 3 buildings. If you've seen the building from Adams Street, it's a historic mansion, that's where the college has its administrative spaces. There's a big classroom building behind it, and then connecting the 2 buildings to the left is like an admin office type space as well. The select board has approved conducting an appraisal of the property, so we will get the ball moving on an appraisal of the property to just inform their decision making around potential price. Library has signed up with a broker, so they're starting to kind of enter that process of trying to sell the property. The school building committee, at its prior meeting, authorized some funding to hire an architect to evaluate the classroom portion of the structure to identify how many spaces they could make out of what's there, how many spaces they need, and how many spaces would need to be added onto it. So any project there would require an additional renovation because the space itself is not sufficient for the program, any kind of program that the district currently runs. So there's a few different items going on. The select board is evaluating from a purchase perspective how much to pay. School committee evaluating from a programming perspective, like what program makes the most sense there, and the school building committee is evaluating, helping provide information related to what a construction project might be there. All of this will feed into an ultimate decision whether to proceed or not. In terms of acquiring property, the last time the town purchased substantial property was the location where the East Milton Fire Station is being built at 432 Adams Street. That was in 2021, I think. So the process will be similar to that with one kind of change where we'll do an appraisal. The select board can negotiate and enter into an option to buy or purchase a sale, however you want to kind of characterize that agreement. But it has to be contingent upon the town meeting vote, because the town meeting vote is required to acquire property. The town meeting vote is going to be necessary to fund it. And in this case, most likely a town meeting vote will, the purchase price, will be high enough that the town wouldn't be able to absorb the cost within its budget. So we will likely need a debt exclusion, which would require a ballot question go out to the voters to ask if the voters increase their taxes for the duration of a bond to purchase the property. So in terms of the money, I think the appraised value, assessed value, I think is around $10 million on the town's books. So we'll see where purchase price lands, but if the town is successful in negotiating that, I should add as a caveat, But that is kind of the broad strokes process where select board has the power to enter into an agreement, but only to do that, it's always gonna be contingent on a town meeting vote. In this place, it'll likely be contingent on both a town meeting vote and a ballot question. Timing on that is still up in the air. We obviously have a state election approaching in November. So we've had some discussions about a ballot question potentially on that ballot. However, if you haven't been following the news too much, there are already potentially 11 ballot questions that's gonna be on the state election ballot in November. It's gonna be a lengthy ballot, so there is some discussion about whether, question 12 being the Atherton fire station, or in question 13 being a potential library college acquisition is better, or whether it makes sense to have a special election for these issues. So that's something that the select board is still weighing. To put a question on the November ballot, you have to submit it to the state by August 5th. So that's kind of the first date at which there's a kind of go, no-go deadline for the town to put a question on that November ballot. If we don't make that, or for a policy reason don't think that's the best option, there would have to be a special election at some point in fall, winter timeframe for that exclusion. So that's the kind of overview of where things stand. School committee and school representatives seem to be excited about the opportunity it offers. And there's continued analysis for that on both the programming front as well as the kind of building facilities site front to verify that it would work and how much would it cost to turn it into a building. And one thing I just wanna note is to convert it to a school and to use it as a school would require a project, and that would not be asked of the voters this fall. The first step will be acquisition, and then there will have to be, if we're gonna use it, some kind of renovation, so that would likely be a follow-up question of money that would also require a debt exclusion vote in the future. So it would be in lieu of another school project that we're currently working with the MSBA on, but it would be a to be determined project cost to outfit it for a school.
Wow, great. So.
Fine.
What?
You go ahead.
I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions you don't know the answers to, but
Okay.
I'm confused, cause this is probably a good reason, but like they say it's a former college with classrooms. How could that's not accommodating for, cause they're too big classrooms physically, is that what the issue is, do you know?
The classroom, some of them are large at that,
Yeah.
and then at that grade level, I'm probably beyond my
The
I'm definitely
density.
beyond my expertise, but bathrooms in classrooms is preferred at that level, it's something that
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
happen. There are a couple of larger classrooms already, in that building that are, kind of lecture hall type building. It's more geared toward college, for that setup. They have a decent library on the second or third floor that's pretty large, so I think it's about, putting up walls in different places and
Yeah, yeah.
moving walls to create the other spaces that the schools are interested
With the bones.
in. Right.
Does the town ever think about hiring like a construction consulting company to analyze costs and something like that?
So in this, we will be required to have a project manager that would serve in that role, under general laws for any kind of public construction project over $1.5 million, you need that. So it's an owner's project manager, and the school building committee is in the midst of a procurement right now for a school project with the MSBA. But that would be something that would have to be done, or we could potentially use this project manager for this project. That's kind of.
Is the project manager part of the school building committee?
No, they work for the town,
It's a separate person, you can hire
to support the town's perspective.
But they don't work for the construction.
No, they're hired directly by the town to oversee the architect and the any of the subs, et cetera, and the GC on the town's.
Okay.
Who owns the building now?
The college still owns it, so the library college bought it from the Congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph from Fontbonne, 10 or 15 years ago, I think. So, but the college owns it, it's winding down all of its assets. Some programs moved to Curry College and some moved elsewhere, so this,
I thought they all moved to Curry, no?
their larger programs did.
Okay, so library is still an institution and they're gonna use this asset, the proceeds of the sale for some purpose.
Like as endowment to support their programs going forward.
Okay. And then my other question is, if this went forward, is any of that project potentially reimbursable under the MSBA, or does that open up a whole new application process all over again? You start from the beginning and all the time that goes with that?
It's a bit of an open question at this point. So where we are at in the MSBA process is we've applied and gotten into the program for a school project.
Yep.
We have communicated with the MSBA about the district's needs, focusing on addressing overcrowding K to 8. So the MSBA has signed the town has signed a feasibility study agreement with the MSBA that stipulates what we are allowed to study and design for a school project. That's a K to 5 building for 495 students, like a new elementary building, K to 5, 495. A new grade 7-8 building for 660 kids, as a new building. And then we can also study an addition renovation of the Cunningham Collicott building. Those are the 3 options we're allowed to study. The sites are kind of up in the air. We could study 10 different sites if we had them. So library college could be studied, but under the parameters of K to 5, 495 students, or upper middle school, 660 students. To study a pre-K kindergarten option there would require MSBA to allowing us to do that. What that process looks like, I don't know. How long might that process take? It's a question that we've asked and we're trying to get a little bit of a better understanding on from MSBA.
Thank you.
I mean, I guess it's probably too soon to tell, but I mean, overall, is there a savings here based on, as compared to the earlier project, the MSBA project that's going for now? It's hard to say, huh?
Yeah, it's hard to say. That's why they've hired the architect.
course.
The school building committee is meeting as we speak to also bring on a structural engineer and a cost estimator so that they can begin to put numbers to those ideas. You know, if it is drastically less square feet, then yes. It's a renovation though, so does that incur some kind of unknown or unexpected costs as a concern potentially? And then the acquisition cost, whether you consider that as part of the overall cost of the budget or not, and that would add to that.
Yeah.
But you know, public construction is 1,100 square foot right now, so it really is a square foot conversation. If it's a smaller building, smaller footprint, it should in theory be cheaper, but renovation just adds a little bit of complexity there.
Yeah.
In terms of the often specialized code for the energy codes and then any kind of ADA requirements.
Okay.
It's almost, from experience, I'd say it's almost always significantly cheaper to renovate than it is to build new.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've not seen it, I've done it a few times, I've not seen it that way, but who knows? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's hiding,
Yeah,
but,
right.
Never know
Yeah.
what those nuns did.
well, I do actually.
Oh, okay.
Catholic schools, so.
I wanna know.
Whacked a few times.
So then if we're talking August, we decide whether or not to put something on the ballot maybe. Let's say October, we go to town meeting, maybe November we vote. Talk to us before that. So at what point will we, I mean, cause I think what Larry said, you know, we got the 2 options, the chicken and the fish, which, you know, I guess you sort of just addressed this, but will we have?
By when?
Huh?
By when?
Yeah, by when will we have some things we can make a good estimate of this price versus this price?
So where the school building committee is working towards has been working towards that end of July timeframe.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that should hopefully give the select board enough time to say, yes, let's proceed with putting the question on the ballot. But I would say in terms of evaluating the existing conditions with cost estimates and conceptual what it might look like, that would probably be like end of July, early August, when the town and the broker and library can put pen to paper on an agreement. If they so choose to put pen to paper, that's a little bit more up in the air. Everything that they've told us is, you know, we're really looking to start kind of the marketing in the summer as we head towards August when they really start to shut down their operations, and they've so far hit that. They signed up with a broker in the last couple of weeks and we've been in touch with them. So I think there'll be more information regarding the potential project and its quantum of cost by the end of July.
Okay.
We'll just have to kind of keep everybody posted as we go in terms of the acquisition aspect of it.
Not that it would save money, but does it expedite the process? Would the town look at using eminent domain at all for that, or? I don't know how those considerations are balanced.
It's not been something we've discussed. It's more of a, probably a stick and a threat than, but it would be in the letter of the law, it would be an option. The eminent domain is there to seize land and pay a fair price for it for a public purpose.
Right.
So those are the kind of metrics you have to hit. It's not been something we've discussed to this point. So I don't want to speak beyond that,
Fair.
and it is a legal option the town could exercise.
It's politically unpalatable.
They'd have to change this, I'm sorry to interrupt. They'd have to change the zoning, right? If they wanted to put in like apartment complexes or something.
But so medical, educational uses and religious uses are just kind of allowed, just they're protected uses, so those kinds of uses would be allowed. So another educational institution could buy it and
Right.
operate it as an educational facility or a religious facility. You know, obviously a 40B project would not be subject to local zoning, and the town is not over the 10% threshold for 40B, so that remains a risk. But anything beyond that would require, it's residential zoning in Milton, and you're allowed to do, single family homes and not much more than that in residential zoning, so it'd be fairly limited under the existing zoning framework if you're trying to work within that.
So I think I understand you, but to confirm, what, might be in front of town meeting this fall and might be on a ballot this fall would only be the purchase of the real estate and not the cost of, for example, the cost of renovation of the building. That would not be something we're voting on this fall?
I have not
Is-
seen
is the
anything to
plan.
suggest that we're on track to even be ready for that.
Okay, so that might cause some nervousness and, we're spending X million dollars to buy real property. I don't wanna say without a plan for how to use it, but with a not finished plan for how to use it, not knowing if the renovations will cost $10 million or $100 million. I can see that being a stumbling block.
And that's why I think how much will the renovation cost, that's why we're trying to get to the end of July timeframe with a better understanding of that, with numbers that can be shared publicly.
Okay.
In terms of a specific price for a project, that would be a later conversation, and the other thing is, potentially alongside that article would have to be an appropriation to design that project. So that there might be a few
Oh, the
different
first
related-
one, the initial one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is a little dependent on what the MSBA's process would require or not.
I watched that school committee meeting where they went through the options. They seemed legitimately enthused and have been very thoughtful about it. I was impressed.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
I voted for that Wayne Sisters thing years ago, and I felt really funny about it, I didn't like it. So I voted for it.
Yeah, I'd certainly encourage people to watch, I don't know, maybe I'll try to find the greatest hits of these meetings that have happened in the past month or so, and I don't know, maybe I should volunteer for other work, but I know
They
there
were
been
in
discussions.
discussion, I would agree, they were good conversations, and they went through a bunch of different options and why some didn't work and some didn't work.
Okay, are we done with that item? Okay, thank you. So other fall town meeting articles that you think might, and I know the fall town meeting, I think the plan is for it to be a little bit earlier than normal, maybe mid-October? Is that?
That had been the plan until the library thing started to, so
Okay.
the normal date of the fall town meeting in according to the bylaw, it says it's the fourth Monday in October if necessary. This year, that would be 1 week before the state election, so early voting, in-person early voting and vote by mail would all be well underway, so typically in the state election year, we try to move that away from that date, so we had looked at the week prior to that, so October 19th as the date of the town meeting, with a few balls in the air related to La Brea. Maybe that moves, but that would probably be the date we're looking at as things stand. Other articles, Atherton Street, as we've talked about, that need to come back to town meeting. any kind of supplemental appropriations, which would be unusual, but is possible. So for example, in the snow and ice example, if it may be necessary to recommend a supplemental appropriation as part of the fiscal '27 budget to address some of the snow and ice deficit, if that still persists, so that would be a potential warrant article. And then the planning board is starting to talk about some zoning, potential zoning options, and zoning bylaws, and one I know has been discussed a little bit has been better regulation around Airbnb, because it's not currently regulated. So whether they're on necessarily agree to move forward on that, kind of to be determined, and what the timeline might be, but that's just something to put out there, and if that is the case, then there's probably a local option statute that the town needs to adopt to levy an additional local fee on those, so there's a couple of different items there. But right now it's still a little up in the air. I did remind department heads and others that if you're aware of any articles, let us know by the end of this month, because it's gonna come up quick. Summer goes by very fast, so.
You said the words levy a fee, so it's the sort of thing where we'd have to pass the zoning, and I mean, what do we have to do to get the money coming in?
Exactly.
Seriously.
Yes.
No, that was an actual question.
So there's a local option hotels tax. Milton, to my knowledge, hasn't adopted. I haven't done the homework to verify. There wouldn't have been a reason to before. So if Airbnbs are technically lawful and short-term rentals, they shouldn't give them free advertising. If they're lawful and regulated, then we want to make sure we're capturing all the potential revenue that goes along with it. If that is a decision the planning board and others in the town may choose to make. So.
Are you saying we'd have to pass a zoning article in order to start, again, I'm focused on the money, in order to start collecting the fees, we have to pass a zoning article that.
Because they're technically prohibited now.
Oh, okay, thank you, I didn't understand
And if
that.
they're operating, we try to stop them when they operate, but they are technically not authorized operations, so by allowing them, you can have them be registered. I'm sure there'd be still some that operate without being registered, but then we can chase them down accordingly.
Any idea of the ballpark?
I haven't really, this
Okay.
is late breaking, so I haven't really
Yeah.
done a lot of homework on it.
I'm just wondering, can we twist the arms of the planning board to get, sorry, I don't wanna out anybody, but I was having a discussion with a warrant committee member just today who was saying, what can we do to bring in more revenue? And so, I'm thinking it takes a year and a half to write this zoning article and start collecting the revenue versus 4 months to write the article and start collecting the revenue, if it's a non-trivial amount of money.
It seems like it's pretty high priority for them, I thought.
Okay, I haven't been paying attention.
There was a big article in Milton Times last week.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw the article about a week ago, I read it.
Okay,
Yeah, and I've had conversations with, people on the planning board.
great.
It didn't seem to have a lot of detail on the article, but it's an issue.
No, that's true.
And a lot of cities and the good thing is a lot of cities and towns have adopted bylaws by now, so there are a lot of examples, and it's not like it's not starting from scratch, and I know that they've seen some examples from other communities.
I would venture to think it would be good for Milton only because we're so close to Boston and hotel space is limited. So,
Yeah,
Well, if you read that article, we're missing out because of the World Cup right now.
oh, I'm sure.
there's a lot of Airbnbs that operate in Milton, and I'm really surprised that they're banned. I mean,
Are there?
somebody's enforcing it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was just the
Yeah.
I
article.
have never stayed.
And they said in the art, if I remember correctly, they said there's a house in Milton that's going for $8,000 a night for the.
Really? No
For the
kidding.
World Cup.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
They are
Crazy.
technically not authorized, but it's
Yeah.
hard
that's
to
funny.
regulate, cause it's just tricky to
Yeah,
track them down, find the owners and have them
Crazy.
listen to the code enforcement letters, but
once they're registered, you could probably,
there's more teeth to that.
yeah, you can go through Airbnb or VRBO or whatever, and get the information from them. Once you have a process in place.
Okay, that's it for the fall town meeting articles. The only other thing on our agenda for tonight, Nick, is, a sort of an open-ended discussion of what we can do better
Sure.
next year. You're welcome to stay for that discussion.
I will be here, if you have any questions, let me know, and
Okay.
just view it as a two-way street. If there's stuff that our office and the other offices in the town, the other departments in town can help your work, that's what we're here for, so please let us know and we're happy to assist.
Okay,
Thank you.
so just because it is a very open-ended conversation, I'll share some of the things I sent around in email as conversation starters. I really want to get everybody's thoughts, and it's sort of like your annual review at work. If you go to talk to your boss and your boss says, you did everything great, well, that's not very helpful. I think we did a very good job this year. I'd be thrilled if you all said we did a very good job this year, but that's not sort of what this conversation is about. The conversation is about what can we do better? I think. So, open-ended question, what can we do to improve things next year? Would anyone like to start? And we've got lots of opinions in this group, that's why I love you.
Jay, it's up to you. I mean, I'm open to starting. I know you and I had a conversation about this. And this is my first year here, so I know I kind of took some time to learn a little bit more about what the warrant committee does and how it functions. So it took me a little bit to understand it. So I thank you guys for the patience. And I thought maybe, and I mean, Jay, I don't think I need to present. I mean, it's up to you. I'm open to sharing the presentation with people later on that I kind of threw in ChatGPT or whatever. But I thought we could start looking at being a little bit more connected to the select committee, the select board rather, to try and understand how they're coming up with warrants and giving them to us. Because I feel like some of the warrants that we get are a little bit random and not sure how they're coming to us and how we're having an impact in terms of bettering the town. Some of them I see where there's a good impact, and I think the work we do when we're going through them, we're trying to be thorough, we're trying to look at things in the right way. But I feel like we don't have a lot of control over them once they get to us. We can change the wording or we can say they can't go, but we don't have a lot of control about what's actually getting through in terms of the warrants being presented. And I think we should have a closer relationship with the select committee to say, why are they coming here and where's the impact? So I'll kind of just start it there, Jay.
So yeah, you and I had some conversations about this. I think if I were to rephrase it, you would say, every article that comes to us and eventually goes to town meeting, what's the real purpose of this? How does this fit with town goals, whether they be financial or otherwise?
Overall, what I kind of learned having been in this process a year is that I feel like we're missing strategy kind of as a town as a whole. And maybe just because I've been in corporate for a really long time, and that when I do things, I look and try and tie it back to a goal. It's like, okay, if I'm looking at something, how is this tying back to a fiscal goal or to a community goal or a safety goal or something? And sometimes I see these warrants and I'm like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And how is this improving the town as a whole? And I feel like the select committee should come to us and say, well, we're presenting this to you because we think this is going to improve the community in this way. I mean, I just used the sign bylaw as an example. I'm kind of like, okay, why did we do that? Not sure why we needed to do that. Maybe a couple of others too. And I think there should be more reason and rationale for why they're bringing warrants to us. And for us to look back and say, well, let's evaluate these and say, what's the greater impact of these warrants? And why do we need to be doing them? Is it going to improve our financial status? Is it going to improve the safety of the town? Is it going to improve the education system? I just think we need more of a more structure to when we're looking at warrants, when we're evaluating them, putting them together and looking at the longer term impact in terms of when we're approving them. That's kind of just my thought.
So, I think probably some sort of a checklist, or I don't know.
I have a whole presentation, Larry, if you want to see it.
But yeah, like guidelines or whatever, so that we're consistent.
Do you want to throw out all right, Jay, do you have my presentation? Or
I do have your presentation.
I
It'll
can
take me a
share it with you
minute
guys later. Just to give you an idea.
Take me a minute. Wait, no, I don't have it handy. 'Cause
I have it. Let me see.
Okay.
Can I share it? All right. I'll show it. Like I kind of just threw this. I was just throwing it together, getting ideas. But one of the things I was thinking is like, okay, so, what is it? What do we do as a town? And I said, playing around, who do we work with? Do we work with select board, the planning board, and the warrant committee? You know, how do we work together? We create the articles, we shape them, and look at the fiscal reviews and the town meeting. This is kind of like the structure of the organization. We propose bylaws. We you know, create a scorecard and then we recommend it to the town hall. And then we look at we have a fiscal impact, strategic priority match, and then the town meeting kind of looks at it. And then how do we actually go about doing that? Saying that I personally think we should have some strategic initiatives, like what should a town as a whole have, like what should the priorities be? Now you can debate this all day long, and of course everybody has different ideas, but I was thinking, okay, you have fiscal priorities, you have safety priorities, you have infrastructure priorities, you have education and youth development, housing and zoning, transportation, health and human services, and parks. Kind of like the 8 key strategic, you can add them, like I said, you can add them, change them, all those things kind of, and this is just kind of a swag, you can fix it, change it, whatever, but saying if those are the strategic priorities, then you kind of look at all the warrants in these kind of pass-fail kind of gate readiness, you know, does it fit the municipal authorities, is in the proper forum, is the draft ready, is there a fiscal note, or is it an implementation owner, and is there a public notice process? This isn't a great slide, I don't love that slide. Then every one of them kind of goes through a pointing process, and we could fix all this, but to give like your priorities and say, okay, each warrant has a priority. Is it meeting your fiscal responsibility? Is it on point from a strategic perspective, meaning matches one of these strategic initiatives? Is it, you know, is it meeting a good amount of the residents? Like, now, of course, you can't satisfy everybody, but is it reaching enough of the residents that it's having a good impact? Or is it 1 or 2 people in the community? I mean, that's some of the things I think some of these things need to be considering. Is it reducing risk? You know, is it making sure there's continuity of service? Is it enforceable? Is it ready to be, you know, be the implementation and can be implemented? Is there including equity and access, public transparency, and deliberate readiness? Like putting different point structures to these warrants when we're looking at it to help us evaluate things, so that it's not just random when we're bringing these things forward. And it has some strategy too, like what are we trying to do every time we put a warrant in front of somebody? What is it, you know, contributing to the community? So that's kind of what I was trying to think of through and say, okay, you know, here's a guide every time we look at a warrant and every time we bring these to the town meeting so that it has a little bit of structure. I just put this together like over the weekend to say, you know, hey, look, this might be a way we could start looking at things. Obviously, there would need to be a lot more work put into it. But that to me made a little sense because I feel like sometimes these warrants that come over, I'm kind of like, what are we trying to solve for? Yeah, of course, it's small little things that, not little, but I mean, like everybody has their ideas of what they want, but how many people are we trying to solve? Do we have the money to solve for it? There's not endless resources, and we're here for hours and hours and hours in these meetings. So that was kind of what I was thinking, but.
Grace, you gonna send that around?
To you guys, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Grace,
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think it's a great, this is just my quick opinion. I think it's a great idea. I would just be careful with some checks and balances. I mean, the select board is elected, we're appointed. I think, I don't know if it's our place to tell them how to decide what articles come before the town. I think that's their job as elected officials.
Yeah.
And our job is to kind of advise on those articles. So I don't know how closely we should be involved in all those determinations that the select board goes through on thinking what's the right thing to present at a given time.
No, Rod, I get that. And that's why I was saying, you know, is there a way for us to partner with them to get it, to either guide them or advise them to say, look, is there a way we can get some more strategy, or for them to give us more guidance of when they're bringing stuff to us? Because I feel like it's almost fully curated when we get it and it's like, oh, here you go, here, go decide.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like throwing it over the fence and we have nothing, what can we do with that?
I totally agree. And I think
And that's my problem is like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? We're deciding on something that's almost half baked.
Yeah, I think even like, I think about baby steps. I think even having whoever advocates for an article to come present it would be a huge accomplishment. You know, I think we don't even get that. And you
Not
know,
even that, Ron, but to give me like, I mean, you're a lawyer, right? You have to argue your point. You have to tell me why you're doing what you're doing. Like, I can't go in front of a CEO and tell him why I'm presenting a business case without telling him where the impact is. You're just throwing me over articles and I have to say, okay, sure, whatever. I don't know why, sometimes I know the impact, sometimes I don't. Why are you presenting this to me? You know what I mean? I don't feel like we're getting that in the best way. Where is the impact to the community? Why are you bringing
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sign bylaw when I don't have enough businesses to bring in revenue? Why are
Yeah.
you doing that?
Yeah, I think,
I wish
yeah,
you-
I think all those points make sense. I would just say we're not the decision maker, so I don't think that they
Well, my
have to
point is
present
the
to us.
decision makers should do that because they have to, they represent the people in this town. I mean, we should be presenting these, we're getting this to the people that we're representing for the rest of the town. You know, we're impacting the future of the town. This logic should be presented to the town. But anyway, I get your point.
I'm gonna start a list. I've got Brian, Larry, and me.
What's up? That was my 2 cents.
Thanks, Grace, I
Well, I
like
think
it.
we're still talking about your 2 cents,
And
I
I
think.
think it's hard to
Yeah, it's great.
manage, but I like it. But one thing, last year and this year, that really drove me crazy, and it drove everybody in the warrant committee crazy, were things were promoted on the warrant as warrants, and we could never talk to the person who presented it and try to vet it out with them. And we wasted a lot of time because of that, especially last year was a big one with the light thing. But I don't know if that's something, can you say to people, like Liz Dillon's on the phone, I don't know if she can say can you say, hey, you guys have to sit in front of the warrant committee and present it and talk to them about it, you just can't like.
Well, I will say that gets to what I was about to say, which was in response to Ron and now you. It's one thing I think that chair or his designee of the select board, I think would probably come to us and talk to us about any article that they present. You know, if an article comes to them and they say, yes, we'll put this on the warrant, and it comes to us, I hope the select board would be prepared to defend it. You know, here's why we thought it was appropriate to put on the warrant. But the counterpoint to that is, like, let's say that they got that from the XYZ committee, or let's say it's coming directly from the XYZ committee and they're putting it on the warrant. Having the advocate for every article come and talk to us could be a lot of talking. And so that's one thing I was trying to do with the experts this year is, Larry, you're the expert on that, you go talk to XYZ committee, and then you come tell us what they think. Because otherwise, they're so happy about the article they put forward, they're gonna come talk to us for an hour. And my judgment this year was that wasn't the best use of our time. If the committee disagrees, that's one thing.
Well, I mean, I think I think you struck a balance. I mean, some of the big important articles, Meredith came from the planning board, came, and so, I went to the signage people. We had several people speak on the Atherton Street station. But every budget, I mean, we didn't have the department heads of every budget article.
Well, not only every budget, but I think every article from the fall town meeting, we didn't have the select board come, and maybe we should have. Probably we should have.
And a few of them, yeah, I
But,
agree, we probably would have stood to hear from the experts. But yeah, I mean, the sign bylaw, I gotta tell you, Grace, I think it's a bad example because we did have Meredith here explaining the reasoning why we were passing the bylaw. You may not have agreed with what the reasoning was, but she did explain what the purpose of the bylaw was and why we were doing it. But there are other examples, and overall, I agree with that approach. I mean, that was my suggestion too, was some kind of a checklist, and here you go. I already went ahead and did it. That's great. So that we're all a little bit more consistent about, when we go to these articles and when we're reviewing.
I'm just saying, like, so we have a better sense of why we're doing it, and it has more consistency, and we understand the fuller impact.
Yeah.
When we're in front, I mean, to manage time. I mean, Jay, to your point, it is the best, trying to use people's time in the right way and having the best impact to the community overall. That's what I'm.
And the other issue is too, is if we're reviewing bylaws and we're not lawyers. Now theoretically I was doing that with Macy, who is a lawyer. But I can't shake the feeling that there's things that I might have missed, and I blame myself, even though there's plenty of other people that missed them. But when it came up before town meeting, several town meeting members had suggestions for changes, and I was like, I wish I'd caught those. But what are you going to do? You can't get to everything.
Correct. I guess my response would be, I don't care who on this committee is an attorney or not. That's not our job. That's town council's job, along with whoever wrote it.
That's right.
If we are finding, let's call them legalish errors, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Even if it is Macy and Ron working on it, and, you know, they're both attorneys and they find legal errors.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have found that.
That's true. It's supposed to be in a final form when it comes to us, right?
Yeah, I mean, they you know, might send us drafts, that's fine too, but,
But the, I mean, the checklist and the strategic goals and things like that, I think that's really great, Grace. I think that's awesome.
can you say there, you said you were gonna suggest a checklist, can you say more about, maybe
Yeah,
that overlapped with what Grace said, but
Yeah,
can you
I
say
mean,
more about that?
It really just, I mean, I hadn't really fully baked it, but it's pretty close to what Grace just presented, you know, which is, you know, as you're looking, if you're looking at a bylaw or if you're looking at a budget article, here's the considerations, here's a list of considerations that you should consider. And then if we're all consistent when we're reviewing these things,
That's a good
I
point.
think it helps, and it'll actually make things go a little bit more smoothly here. I'm not so sure, Grace, about the weighting system. I think that'll be pretty controversial, but everything else about that is
I mean,
great.
you can adjust it, but it just helps to sort of align to, you know, strategy and saying,
Yeah.
okay, are we moving in the right direction? And part of this, I talked to Jay earlier about this of like, you know, if we agree to where we're trying to put our resources and our energies, the weighting system helps. But, you know, I mean, it's all,
Okay.
you know, can agree with however.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard. I mean, how do you agree with, like, I mean, yeah, sure, fiscal responsibility is important, but we're not a for-profit organization, we're a town, you know?
No, but we're limited in resources, Larry. That's part of the issue. We don't have endless resources. Nobody ever does. We don't have endless time or resources. So
Right.
that's the issue, you know?
Well, that's what I mean, it's debatable, about whether that's the most important thing to be considered. It all depends on, I mean, anyways, that's a debate you could have. That's why I'm saying that the weighting system is a little problematic. But the other stuff, the strategic goals, I think is great. I think that's a great way to look at it. You know, like figuring out what the strategic goals are for the town, and then
Yeah, I mean, we
Using
already
that
have a
together.
master plan that was made 12 years ago, we might be having a new one coming up.
start there.
I guess one thing, you know, the good thing and the bad thing about Grace's plan is it's very ambitious. Like, you know, we have a master plan, it's 200 pages long, so. Yeah, I've had a few conversations with Grace, and I love the ideas, but I'm not sure how to implement
Yeah.
a lot of them, so. I'm not trying to be negative, Grace, and this, you know.
No, I
Yeah,
mean, I
it
just-
requires some more thought. I mean, you
What I
give
like
us all
about-
something to think about.
Framework that Grace shared was the kind of, I think the need for things to come more fully baked. I do think there were some things that were
Yep.
kind of incomplete, and I liked the way in which she framed things up front, which is, you know, people should be compelled to sort of make the argument of why, not just the nuts and bolts of it, but why it's important in the first place and how that fits into the importance of the town. I think the scoring system is tricky because it, you know, it's kind of subjective how you'd allocate the points and then how you're gonna score the individual categories. You know, it's very much in the eye of the beholder, and to Ron's point, where we're not elected, it might rub some people the wrong way if we're gonna try to create a scoring system, but the first part about, like, you know, there's whatever, she had 8 on her grid about, you know, this is where it fits in and this is why this issue is important. I think that would be really helpful. So I think that would be good.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at the sign bylaw, I mean, it's a bylaw about signs. You know, you don't really consider the fiscal impact of that, but we should, because we're the warrant committee. We should be considering the fiscal impact.
I mean, you
of
could
it,
even have put,
You know,
and I don't remember why, I mean, I get the benefit of the sound bylaw, but I don't know what the problem was that we're trying to solve. Like, I don't remember hearing about that, and I
just
feel
efficiency.
silly
And-
now.
And Nick, to that,
Efficiency, or was
that's,
it that people were like having inappropriate signs that they were trying to screen? I don't remember, like I should have,
No, it wasn't really
it's,
that.
I feel
That's just
foolish
to make it
now,
more efficient.
reflecting on it now, that wasn't something that we.
no, but Nick, I think that's what I was trying to get at, is that a lot of times when I'm doing things at work, is I try and tell people, what is the problem, what is the job to be done? What are we trying to solve, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
The job to be done is the key that I think we need to think about when we're looking at warrants, and who are the people we're trying to serve when we're doing this, you know, and the impact. And I think those are the questions we need to be asking when warrants are being presented
I
and
agree.
when we're evaluating. And I don't know that those are being asked when the warrants are being sent to us.
I don't have any issue with that.
I think
Yeah,
I can,
it's great.
the sign bylaw example, I think I can see both sides. I think both from the meetings and from personal talks with Meredith Hall, personal talks with Larry. I think the problem they were solving was that the current process is confusing, maybe doesn't match what's written in the law, and that we were trying to make it less confusing for the people participating.
That's right.
But I also agree with Grace and Nick that that was not made super clear in large font and blazing neon sign, so to speak.
That's right.
Here's the problem we're trying to solve.
Right.
It was a scope statement at the beginning of everybody's presentation, and then, 10 minutes later, you're in the weeds of looking at the sign bylaws and why you're changing signs and, all these different things. And it's hard, you lose sight of it very quickly.
This would come to my idea or my point that I'd like to raise, which is I thought it took a while for me to kind of get the lay of the land about how to share information that I was supposed to share with the committees. Like we had first round with the fall warrants, I don't remember what the first item that we talked about, somebody did an awesome job, kind of set the standard for everybody else. It wasn't clear if that was really the standard we all wanted to aim for, but it kind of became apparent that it was. But if there's a sample for that, I think that would be helpful, sort of when you're assigned one of these topics, when you come to the committee, it would be great to have X, Y, and Z included in the information that you're gonna summarize and share. And, that has to be more robust for some items than others. And then I think there's a different format for when you do the individual department budgets. And it's, so a template or sample for that would be a best practice. Not that everybody has to follow it like a slavishly, but like a good format would have helped me a lot as a first-time person to be more effective in sharing my first time through some of those issues. I would have appreciated that. And hopefully maybe would have created more efficiencies. And I don't know, I'll jump to my third thing since I'm on a roll. I mean, I think you did a great job as the chairman of the committee, and I really appreciate the time that you put into it and the organization and the discipline. And I think, your leadership really helped us to function more effectively as a group and use time efficiently. So I think that's a real win for me personally, I think for the group in total, but I can only speak for myself.
I feel like a team,
Yeah,
I don't know if
agreed.
that's what you
I
feel for the
felt
one
like
thing.
we were a team.
Yeah, like I felt like a team.
Ron, I see your hand up.
Great points by Nick. On Grace, on your suggestions, I love them. I think there is a lot of stuff in there we can suggest to the select board in terms of how they present the town and the town meeting overall, right? But I don't know if we would say, do you have to do X, Y, Z to put a warrant in front of us? But I do think all the things you said, advocating, explaining why, I think if they don't want to do it for us, I don't think they have to, because we have a job. We're the warrant committee. We're going to review the warrant no matter what. They should really do it at least, to the town and to the town meeting. And I assume they do that. I assume they have meetings. I assume they advocate and they explain their positions. I don't listen to all of them. I don't think we attend all of them. But maybe some of it's already in there and how they have public, meetings for the citizens. But I think we could say, hey, at minimum, whoever sponsors an article, this is the expectation that you will come before the warrant committee and do X, Y, Z. Jay, I do think you made a intentional decision not to require every advocate or every party who's involved to come present to us, and I do think that saved a lot of time. So I'm torn between those two. Sometimes it's nicer to have firsthand information from the person who's really advocating, but then I agree, it could take a lot of time, and sometimes we get in a rut, and it's easier to have like a one-off, and then someone presents it to us. But I don't know what's the right way, but it's one of the two, maybe somewhere in between. But I think, maybe some guardrails on what should the owner of the warrant article be prepared to do, and maybe it's meet with us, fill out some information, some background information, and then come present if we request it. So that's one thought I had. The other thought I had that I still don't know how we can get better about was around the budgets. I feel like we have the budget. There's not a lot we can really do about it. We ask a bunch of questions, And at the end of it, we're kind of like, okay, yes, we all support the fire department and we all want more firefighters, but that's just not going to happen because no one's really pushing for it. We just kind of nod and, we vote the article, and then, we're not able to really influence the long-term direction. And I don't know how we fix that, but I think that part, I think we could try and figure out how to do a little better, because it does feel like the budget is already cooked, and we're not really able to give much guidance there.
That's a very good point, Ron, and I think it'll be an important one for this year. I will say that in recent conversations, it's come up that some people, town meeting is the final say on the budget, and we are the next to final say on the budget. We are the say of what gets presented at town meeting. And, I made that clear to everyone on this committee in the summit that we had in the fall. But it's come up that some people in town government didn't quite get that we were the final say. They thought Nick's budget was the final say. And so I'm optimistic that, once we sort of hammer that out and say, okay, who does what, I think I'm gonna be working with the select board chair and really say, okay, who does what at what time of the year? And one possibility is, in the bylaws, by January 31st, Mr. Milano hands a copy of the budget to the select board and to the warrant committee. One possibility, I'm not saying it's necessarily this, is that before January 31st, it's sort of in the select board's hands, and after January 31st, it's in our hands. And they can give us advice if they want, but it's in our hand. It's sort of a subjective point of view issue, but if, maybe that's one thought, is that the handover is that, and as we all know, in January 31st, we're still getting changes in from expected state aid, still getting changes in from healthcare, so maybe that's the correct handoff. As
Right, but
opposed,
Jay,
Go ahead.
in that case, in that situation, you mean we would be adjusting and moving money where we think it would be appropriate? Is that what you're saying in terms of the budget?
Yeah, what I'm thinking is, and I'm not saying this is where we're gonna end up, I think I wanna, or I shouldn't say I will say that, I have put in to come back to the warrant committee next year, and we'll see if the moderator reappoints me, and we'll see whoever is elected chair. But if whoever's elected chair next year works with the chair of the select board and sort of hammers out, okay, who's really doing what when? So for example, I think of this spring, and the dollars would change. And Mr. Milano went to the select board and said, the dollars have changed, I wanna change the budget in this way, and the select board said, yeah, we think that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. Mr. Milano can talk to the select board about whatever he wants, and the select board can vote on whatever they want. But maybe if we just change the, and it's on me. I did not invite Mr. Milano to our meetings nearly as often as I should have. But if I start inviting Mr. Milano, every meeting after January 31st, and if the numbers changed, he says the numbers changed, here's one way to move them, and we say, yeah, we think that's a good way to move it, or how about if you move this here and there? Did I answer your question, Grace?
No, I get it, but I think there's still limited, at the end of the day, unless we're really in the government, we're not gonna be moving a lot of money around.
Yeah.
To Ron's point, I think, because we're not gonna be really throwing budgets here and there and everywhere at that point. I don't know. I don't know how much more you're gonna have in terms of moving money, even if we're the last people to touch it.
Well, and part of this, I'll admit, is my personal inclination. I'm more interested in things like, what do we put into reserves? And I'm less interested in the minutiae of little budgets. I would argue that, I don't know if we're the right ones to say, yes, you should hire a librarian, or, we have money, should you hire a librarian or firefighter? I don't know if we're the ones to say that, but I think, where we might have a say is, how much money do we put in the reserve account or the stabilization account next year? Which stabilization account? We have several of them. How much is coming out of the operating budget stabilization fund? Things like that. Maybe it's just where my personal interest lies, but that might be where we have
Yeah, I did mention to you, I also do think we need to have a little bit more focus on how do we raise fees or revenue in that way to help impact the budget. Is there any way we could have any, work on that? So,
I think there's a lot of value in our role as interpreters for the town meeting, interpreting the budget for town meetings, or attending for town meetings. I think there's a lot of value there, you know. I know that wasn't traditionally our role. I mean,
I'm not following.
well, I think, I mean, I guess before we had this from town administrator, didn't the warrant committee make a lot more
Yes,
direct
made the
decisions
budget.
about the budget? Yeah, they made the budget, yeah, right. But I mean, I think there's still a lot of value in just being interpreters of the budget, you know, and writing those, you know, working with the department heads, meeting with them, and writing up the articles. I think there's still a lot of value there, even if we're not really gonna change the budget.
I mean-
Because we're not, as an unelected body.
I don't 100% agree with that. I mean, you know, by law, it's our budget that we're presenting to town meeting. Now, we'd say by law, but you know, should we change it or not? I think Ron had a very good point in that if it comes to us, you know, if the final version comes to us March 15th, we don't have a whole lot of chance to do anything other than say, well, we can say yes or we can throw a hand grenade at this budget. Those are our two choices. So what can we do, you know, in the fall before Mr. Milano even starts the first draft of the budget, saying priorities, in the winter when he's working on the budget, or in the spring after he's made the first version of the budget? What can we do so we're something other than, well, we've got this at the last minute and you know, I'm not blaming Mr. Milano, he's been on time with everything. You know, but when things are changing and when we're waiting for those changes to come to us, what can we do other than wait for the changes to come to us and then say yes or?
I mean, Jace, there's some areas, I mean, we went through it last year, like there's some areas where we know we need to spend money, like we talked earlier about the accounting software. We have to be like, look, you have to pay for that this year. You know, like we have to start telling them, okay, here are some priorities you have to put money out for, you know, that we know are gonna impact the budget. Maybe that's kind of where we have impact,
Great
Yeah.
example.
you know? Because
Great.
that's gonna have an impact in the operation.
Yeah, there was the IT budget too, where we made a pretty strong suggestion that even do some kind of a pen test this year, you know, the IT department wants a pen test.
I remember that discussion, I don't know if anything happened.
I sent it, forwarded it to him. We had
Okay.
a little discussion back and forth, but never, I don't think it came to anything.
I don't know if that changed the dollars, did it? Okay,
No, it might be for this year,
okay.
you know. I'm gonna bring it up every time I talk to him.
Okay. Brian, yes.
You would change subjects.
Sure. Might change it back, but that's fine.
That's right. So I've said this before, so I don't want to put people kind of the board. But like, I got on the budget committee, I got on the warrant committee, call it budget committee, because it is, but. I got on the warrant committee because a couple of years ago I was watching town meeting. And they were talking about putting in a new field. And people got up and they said, we never did a cost analysis on this. And then other people said, no, we did do a cost analysis on it. And I always never understood how both can't be true. So I got on the warrant committee and I asked, when I got on, I asked the Parks guy, commissioner, and I said, did we do a cost analysis? He said, yeah, we did. I said, okay, can I see it? So I got emailed a ton of files, and I went through them all, I couldn't find it. So I said, it's not here. And then I said, well, where is this cost analysis? And there wasn't one done, as it turns out, by the town, but there was one done by the vendor who was trying to sell us this field. So, like, as a businessman, I would never take a vendor's analysis as truth and gospel, because they're trying to sell you something that's millions of dollars. Like, you should do your own, it should have been their own, the town should have done their own analysis on that, just to check it, would be sure about it. But there's nothing in the files on this. And that's a big flaw I've seen throughout this, is that people buy things or do things or say things, and there's not really a good analysis on it, good cost analysis on it. And I'll say one thing that bothered me was when we were doing capital expenditures, and we were talking about the town bought a $700,000 truck. And I questioned it at a meeting on a Thursday, and I said, is there a cost analysis on it? And so they said, yeah, they talked about it at the meeting. And I said, well, what is it? And nobody knew. So I actually went back and I watched the meeting. And there was nothing on paper. It was just word of mouth, well, it costs so much a day if we need to use this truck. I can't remember what it was, like, I wrote it down, like $800 or $1,000 a day or something. We have to rent this truck. And, so we should do it. But like, that's not a good analysis, like, you know, so I went through and I tried to figure it out myself, and I said, well, if you use it 9 months a year, because you're not gonna use it in the winter, it was digging into the ground. And if you used it 4 days a week, like, nobody really knew how many times you really needed to use it. And the best I could figure out, it might have been a 6-year payback if you used it 4 days a week, 9 months a year, you know, if you did, it would be like a 6-year payback. But I didn't really have the numbers. And actually at that meeting, I asked if we could wait until Monday till we got that, and nobody wanted to. And so I went back and looked. And we did it we bought a $700,000 truck and had no cost, nothing in writing. I mean, whether it was the right decision or not, I don't know, but nobody else knows either. Like, nobody put anything in writing on that said, like, on a piece of paper, like, it's net present value, it's gonna pay for itself in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I just think that happens a lot, and I think that should be a requirement. I don't wanna see it on paper.
Brian. I agree with you, Brian.
Yeah, you're making a good point. That sounds like a capital expenditure.
Yeah, in that case,
Can I ask Lorraine, like, what sort of work does the capital committee do for things like that?
I can probably answer more. Again, I don't have any of the information in front of me, but the information that was presented at the meetings that I went to were requests from different departments and sort of the life of the either instruments or devices or vehicles, how long they've been using them, and that when their life was sort of gonna have to be replenished, just like you do with your own cars and stuff. I think can you answer more to the question?
It's fine if you didn't hear the question,
I mean, I
didn't hear
didn't,
the topic of discussion.
yeah, I mean, I didn't,
I
The-
wasn't.
The topic was like, if we're doing capital expense, like buying a large truck, what sort of
$700,000 truck, I was talking about.
Yeah, what sort of analysis is done to justify the expense?
I mean,
Is there anything in writing on it?
the capital committee takes all of its requests in writing with backup from each of the department heads. It's distributed to the capital committee members and then is evaluated by the committee. The department heads are invited to attend, and they were invited at that meeting to address questions, respond to questions.
maybe we should,
If there is a certain analysis folks are looking for before it goes to town meeting, if that's requested, we can follow up with it. In that case, the capital committee spent about an hour talking about it, 45 minutes to an hour going over it. And agreed with the recommendation included in the capital budget request that was submitted to the warrant.
maybe we should attend the capital improvement
Yeah.
planning committee meeting.
I didn't see anything in writing, it sounded very verbal to me when I was in there, like this,
Yeah, maybe,
But-
maybe.
The
those-
members of the committee were provided with all the backup, every single request has a request with details and explanations and rationale behind it.
You can't trust
I
the
just
town
don't have
meeting to
anything
speak. They may,
Yeah.
no, they're just regular people,
So I think that's a place where capital committee members saw that, heard it, read it, followed up through with it.
Yeah.
Whether that needs to follow through to this committee too, sure, but did we do a cost analysis, how much is this gonna, to that effect? No, I mean, it was a piece of equipment that adds value in terms of projects the town can undertake more quickly and more safely.
like, what's the payback on it, how many years will it pay for itself? versus
Well, I
renting it
mean,
out?
Brian, let's
That'd be
really
my
talk about
question.
sort of what will we be doing next year?
Yeah, that's what I think, you should have stuff in writing on something like that.
Okay.
I think the town should do it as a whole.
We could start with attending the capital improvement planning committee meetings and find out what their process is. So if
Well,
you
all
wanna-
15 of us?
No, me and Brian can go.
Warrant committee has a designee on the committee already.
Yeah,
Oh, that's true.
Lorraine is our
Right,
official.
Right.
I just don't have information tonight, cause I didn't
Yeah.
know all of
Well,
this was coming up, but
Yeah,
information
I
does
think the
get
question is
sent
not,
to us.
was this truck a good purchase? The question is, what should we be doing next year?
Procedure,
Yeah, maybe next
what's the
meeting.
payback on something like that you would spend that
So
much money?
specifically capital,
Right.
okay.
And I was asking that, that's one of my questions I was asking, and I at least felt like, at the very least, we could have waited on that vote, because I thought $700,000 is a lot of money, I
Okay.
think.
I don't remember that, if that was the
Yeah.
end, I mean, I certainly feel like, as a chair, I feel like we spent a lot of time in the spring on the non-budget articles, and, you know, I blame myself, and then the budget articles sort of came up at the end, and it was like, oh no, we gotta get this done. So I certainly thought we could have spent, you know, balanced out the time in the spring a little bit better.
Yeah, it's tough, because it's supposed to be, fall for zoning and spring for budget, but
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way.
Ron, I see your hand, is this about this, is about, oh, Ron, you're recognized.
Mine is a little different. If we can, we're finished with this one. Hey, Jay, I thought the presentation you provided, the town meeting about how to think about reserves and when the town should start thinking about, you know, when do we tap into the reserves? I think we all know that was received very well. So I think we should do more of that. And maybe that goes to Grace's earlier point about having more of a strategy from the select board and having those types of formal presentations to the town would be helpful. I think what you did could be a model for how the committees can present higher level information so people can actually follow. I think people get, you know, people are busy and they can't follow every single article and know where all the articles fit in, but having some, you know, big picture items could be useful.
Yeah, Ron, that's actually what I told Jay. I said, Jay, that should be like the starting point of what I was building off of. So, like a guide point.
Yeah,
Because I think that what he presented was very, very good and really helpful.
I mean, they did that years ago when they passed the, you know, whatever it was, the master plan, you know? But that was 12 years ago, right? The master plan.
Right, but.
Oh, the master plan,
Mm.
okay. And
Yeah, I had mentioned to Jay that, I mean, like, if we have a plan at town meeting in May or in October, it should be at least the key tenets of what we should be working on as a town.
Yeah,
At one of those meetings every year should be presented. But that's just my thought.
I have a couple of really quick items.
Sure.
Out there.
Yeah.
Off topic. I mean, just based on everything we've discussed, I think a template for a PowerPoint slide deck for each article would be good, would be helpful. You know, you can use that as a model. You don't have to follow it strictly. You can add slides or remove slides, of course, but I think that would help. Like, here's 5 slides looking for this overall scope, the purpose, that kind of thing, to present to the rest of us. And then also a template for a warrant committee comment, for the warrant comments.
Okay.
Because, you know, we all have various writing styles. We all kind of probably thought different things were important for every article. And in order to have a consistent warrant, it seems like, you know, having some kind of just bullets, like, here's the things that you need to present. Like, so for a budget item, you know, what's new, where were the shortfalls, you know, what are the new items this year, what are they being for, what are the big projects that they're being for.
That's a
that
good
kind of
idea.
thing.
And then the reader, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
there will always be exceptions.
oh, of
But
course.
the reader can see, I just looked at the police budget, now I'm looking at the council on aging budget, and they both say, here's Vaster's budget, here's what they're adding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I can put something together if you want, and then we can all discuss it.
Is it a template for those two things, or is it just an outline?
Basically, well,
Yeah.
yeah, just bullets. It's nothing too crazy, but it makes us a little bit more consistent.
There you go.
One thing I'm wondering, this is sort of circling back to the, you know, how do we work with the budget? I mean, you know, we have 15 of us, and in theory, all 15 of us are very interested in the budget. So how do we make decisions, like, should we have you know, we're the finance subcommittee, should we have a finance subcommittee of like 3 people who, you know, sort of take my spreadsheet that I made a couple months ago and work with Nick to update it, and I don't know, just really dig into it in the same way that, you know, for every article, we allocated them out this year and said, okay, we don't expect everybody to read these 20-page zoning articles, we want you and you to read these 20-page zoning articles. Should we have, you know, a small subcommittee that really digs into I shouldn't say subcommittee, because then we got open meeting law problems, but I don't know how a group of 15 sort of makes, especially budget decisions, like what are priorities. I don't know, I'm sort of rambling at this point.
I don't know, man, I thought it worked pretty well, you know, for the budget. Maybe
You weren't sitting next to me in my basement when I was working on that Excel file.
weren't.
Okay, sorry to complain, but
But, you know, I do wonder whether that comes back to the kind of original concept of are you getting things in a fully complete manner? Or did the resolution of that issue fall to you because you were willing to roll up your sleeves and do the job and you had really good thoughts? Is it really your role to have done that? Or is it somebody else's in town to have really taken the leadership on that? And I do wonder
I was
whether
wondering that too.
that's somebody else's role. Like, I think you should be involved and consulted and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like you kind of went further than you probably should have. And I think that's similar to some of the other articles that we're talking about where we would get things and they weren't fully complete. And so people on the committee would have to spend a lot of time to kind of wrestle them over the line and make, you know, suggestions or edits when really that probably should have come in a different way. And so, I don't know, that's a tricky one.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of wondering, I mean, did you consult with the town treasurer? Or is that even her role?
Treasurer or financial administrator?
I know you can,
financial Um,
I know you consulted with the financial director.
no. Regarding what?
When you know, that big presentation on the reserve fund, you know, I mean, it was a ton of work. It
No,
was
that
great.
one didn't bother me as much as it was the, you know, the kind of wrangling over, the school committee allocation and, you know, those final nuts and bolts, where I think you did a lot of
Yeah.
budget work and manipulating of things and looking at, you did some stuff looking to the future as well. But the presentation on the reserve, I can't remember the name of the term, from the override, operating
budget.
override, you know, reserve fund or whatever. I thought that was great. And I think that is appropriate, the work that you did there, but I think some of the stuff leading up to the completion of the warrant maybe was not something you have to have done.
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
Right,
Like,
but to
I
Nick's
don't know
point,
what-
it is something we should do. That, to Nick's point, it's something we should be doing on a regular basis, so everybody's looking at it.
Well, I mean, I guess, I mean, the way I'm interpreting it is some of those big, you know, those crazy in-depth analyses that you did. I'm wondering why there wasn't an elected official or a town employee that did that.
On my to-do list, which I have not done, is circle back
I don't know,
with
is that your point?
Yes.
my colleagues at town hall, who I think I have a very good relationship with, and say, here's the spreadsheet that I ended up with after a bunch of trial and error.
Yeah,
Can you take this over? Yeah, because
I mean, whatever, it happens, you know, you have a
Yeah,
unique
yeah,
skill
yeah.
set that, you know, people that are working 40 hours and have a million things going on, you know, don't have the time to do, for example, and, well, I mean, everybody works 40 hours, but you know what I mean? I don't know, who knows, you know, why it wasn't, but you have a unique skill set and you put it to use, you know, in the service of the town, which is great for a volunteer. But it did seem like something that should be done every year, obviously, and possibly by a town
Yeah.
employee or
Yeah.
elected official. This is a great discussion. Yeah. I like that it is.
Jay,
yes,
one other observation that I have. I think we did it. I think it was great the way we shared drafts of the comments. I think we had a lot more time to review this year than in prior years, so I think we should continue to do that to the extent possible.
okay. What I wish in hindsight we had done, we didn't have to wait till a week before the warrant went to print to start writing the comments. Some of those comments could have been written a month earlier, if not more, so
I mean,
that's,
I did one of mine, like, I think I discussed it like 5 or 6 months before the town meeting, you know? And
yeah, we didn't have to wait. But yeah, I like sharing those. Thank you for
That's
saying
another thing though that a new person might not know is that they're responsible for drafting those comments.
I assumed that it wasn't, but then it turns out it wasn't really the case. Somebody did, like, one person before, did one person write all the comments, or was it always the entire
that. I
committee?
don't know,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
I think Dave and Tom wrote a lot of them.
Oh, really? Seems impossible.
And then also, a lot of them were just pulled from last year. I think that sort of fell through the cracks this year, was meeting last year's.
And I think, Jay, if I recall, a lot of times those prior warrant committee chairs had to write them at the last minute because we didn't get updated versions of articles till the last minute. And it's kind of like we can barely have time to vote. And it was like a scramble even to get the comments written. So I think that there's just some of that timing complexity that happened in the past, which we can't control. So
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this warrant committee had the benefit of not having especially controversial,
That's
I won't
true.
say not difficult, but especially controversial articles in front of us. We benefit from that. I would like to turn to our fearless leader, Liz. You've been listening. The open question is, what should we be doing different next year? If you would like to chime in, then you are recognized. If not, then that's fine too.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. I think this was a really great discussion so far, and I really appreciate can you hear me? I really appreciate everyone's really great thoughts and hearing them. I have been really incredibly impressed with the warrant committee this year. I have heard so many good things about this year's warrant committee, and I'm really very appreciative for all of you. I think that, your comments before that it was, maybe Nick said this, I don't remember, but that it's like a team. And I really did feel like it was a team, and I felt like it was a really good team effort. So I want to say that that was a wonderful thing that happened with this particular group. And I felt like I also want to thank in particular Jay, of course, because, being the chair of the warrant committee is a lot of hard work, a lot of effort goes into it. And also, I heard so many really good things. People really appreciating the detail and the time that you spent going into the budget in the beginning of town meeting. I think was really very helpful for a lot of people. And a lot of people said that they really appreciated that. So I think that that was a really good addition. In my opinion, I think that that's something that, feel free to continue next year. I think that, the point about the warrant committee vis-a-vis a select board, obviously that's something that's been the subject of some discussion. I agree that the warrant committee, is the town's finance committee. And so obviously the town meeting votes on the recommendations of the warrant committee. And so I appreciate all of your points, Grace, about how we can work, or how the warrant committee can work cooperatively with the select board to try to make sure that the warrant committee has all the information that they need in a timely fashion. I agree that this year it seemed to be really working well between the different town boards and committees, and the warrant committee getting everything a little bit earlier than maybe had happened in the past. And so I think that those are all really good points. I agree also with your point, Ron, that this is an appointed committee. At the same time, it's very clear to me what the bylaws and the laws of the Commonwealth say that the warrant committee should be doing. So I don't want to say that it's, it's not really an advisory board. It's not something that's just, it's appointed and so we can ignore it. It's a really essential part of the legislative branch, which is town meeting. And I think that town meeting really looks to, and has looked to in the past, and is looking to, again, the warrant committee really for advice and guidance about especially the budgetary items. When I first talked to all of you in the beginning of last year about the non-budgetary items, I was really pleased to see sort of the tactic that Jay and the rest of you had taken regarding really having experts in those areas. I had said that I really thought that after reading town meeting time with regard to non-budgetary warrant committee articles, where people do have a particular expertise, or where people are able to really dig into those particular non-budgetary warrant articles, that's where the warrant committee is really beneficial. And so I think having all those fulsome discussions, having that real look into it. Having those experts, I thought, really worked well this year. And as for the budgetary items, I mean, I agree that having the warrant committee really look into this, one, enables town meeting members who haven't had a chance maybe to dig into it as much as they might be able to, but also really the townspeople. I think a lot of people really do watch these warrant committee meetings. And a lot of people really watch town meeting and they really appreciate hearing from the chair of the warrant committee. So all that to say, you know, I think that it will be sorted out amongst, you know, the select board and whatever other boards and committees and the warrant committee chair and myself and, you know, who's in charge of what and by what timeline. But I think that we've all worked really well together this year. You've all worked really well together this year. And I just wanted to really say, you know, next year, whoever still wants to remain and is reappointed, and if you haven't told me, please tell me. I've heard from all, but I think maybe one or two of you that I know were having to reflect a little bit about the time commitment and things like that. But I really want to encourage those of you that are doing it again next year to really, you know, just continue on as you have been. I think this has been a really remarkable year for the warrant committee. And again, I have heard nothing but good things. And I am absolutely sure, 110%, that people would tell me if they didn't feel that way. And so, yeah, that's it for me. But I think that this discussion was really great. And if people have other thoughts, you know, I'd love to hear them. If people have thoughts over the summer or before the fall town meeting or at any time, you know, I'm really always very available to hear them. And yeah, that's it for me. But thank you so much, Jay, for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to talk to everyone.
Okay. I think that wraps up that discussion. I will say this is the last meeting of the year. Thank you all. If anybody has anything they want to say, they're welcome to.
Oh, I just wanna see if Grace, can you share the presentation? Or can you share it?
Yeah, I'll send it to you guys. I'll send it to you guys once I get
Yeah, thanks.
away on the computer.
It's a great place to start for sure.
I'll say something.
Brian.
Unfortunately, I won't be on it next year,
Oh,
so I'm sorry. But I wanna thank everybody for the opportunity. I'll say this, I really liked it as a life experience, it was great, I learned a lot. And I'm impressed with all the workings that go on in the town, it's wild. But you know, one thing I liked, I've met a lot of nice people, I've met a lot of good people. And I like the professionalism of 2 years of everybody on it. I've seen other committees that I don't think were very professional. And this one, I thought, always was. 2 years in a row, I thought it was very good. Healthy conversations. So I like that. That's how it should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks to Liz Dillon for letting me stay on. Maybe.
that's a shame, Brian.
All right.
But,
So
you have a good perspective and fiscal responsibility.
Ask questions, always ask
I
questions.
think that brings us to an end for the year. If someone would like to make the final motion to adjourn,
I'll make the motion.
Yeah, you move that.
Brian's making the
Make the
motion.
Second whatever motion he's made.
To adjourn,
To adjourn, sorry, I didn't say it well.
Okay, all in favor, go off mute and say aye.
Bye.
Aye, all opposed, no.